Hello, this is the second part of the shifter rebuild for the XTR M900. Today I'm going to work on the left side, so the 3-speed side. Well, it's quite evident there's a problem with this one as it's not shifting properly up and down, most likely the pull that's sticking on the interior. So we're going to undo all the parts like on the first video and then rebuild it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the screw from here that's holding this pod cover. My pod's actually broken, so it's pretty much needs to go in the bin. So we're going to go ahead and remove this top nut. So we're going to go clockwise with a number 10 wrench. So on here there's a plate to take off, return spring. There's a kind of spacer washer I'm about to take off. The first lever. Okay, well we can understand now why it's not shifting properly when you look at the condition of this. Underneath that is a bushing. Yeah, so there's a part that's slotted into this nylon bushing. So right there, there's a clip to take off to remove this top plate. Okay, got it. So underneath this, there was a 2 rings, a copper one that's going at the bottom. I'm going to unclip the return spring. We can now remove the lever. Okay, got it. Underneath this is a bushing. We're going to take off the sill. So there's a return spring for this pull. I'm not too sure where the other end was touching. The longer part was going downwards here at the back. I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to remove this bolt to make it easier to visualize. And it's actually like practically glued together with some, I don't know, some insect spider web that's living in here. So now you can take this off. Okay, so we're going to take off this pull on the top. It's very stuck on. So lifting it up. So for the sprocket, I'm going to take that off. We're going to re-clean this. And underneath, finally, the spring. We're going to give this handle a clean, so you need to remove that clip here. You pretty much need to squeeze everything together with your finger, and that's going to take off this first plastic cover. Go on the other side. And now you need to take this spring off, and the way to do that is to just simply push down. Okay, at the back of this is a small bolt, so you're going to need a 1.5 Allen key to take that off. Now you need to push this pivot right here through. We can now remove the handle. Be careful as this part right here can fall out. And here again there's a pivot that's holding this. You should be able to just push it through pretty easily. And between that there's a kind of like a barrel shape, this part basically. We're going to need to remove the clip on this lever to take off the pull. Lift up the pull. Everything now is going to need a meticulous clean, one by one. Make sure when you're doing this, obviously, not to lose any small parts, as that will be quite annoying to replace. So I'm going to get on to doing that, and I'll let you get on with doing that as well. Finally, I have given all the parts a clean. I'm going to now move on to the greasing of the pivoting and parts that have some kind of friction on them, and then we'll move on to the actual rebuild. So for the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this sprocket back onto that nylon part. I'm also going to put the spring on the back on. For the other tip of the spring, the tip actually needs to go into that hole right here. So to do this, it's going to be easier to do it upside down, I guess, for me. Going to put one of the pulls back on to the pivot. The other pull is going to go, so with the bit that's sticking up, facing upwards. There's going to be a return spring for this pull here to put back on. So the longer tip is going, I think it's here at the back, but I'm going to be able to figure that after when we're going to put the that plate back on top. To make this easier to work on, we're going to put the mech back onto the main body, and we also need to put the covers back on as well. So I'm going to put that there, and then after there's this kind of cover that goes around wrapping up on the side. Okay, you can now put this back onto the lever part of the shifter. So we're going to need to put the lever on, so we'll put that bushing through the lever from this side. So don't forget, we're going to now put that sill back down, and now we're going to take the lever. So the nylon part is going to go downwards, and it's actually going to integrate into that sprocket. So that hook here, well, that pull that you see here is going to go in between that hook and this and the actual lever part. So it's in this position that we need to put this in. We can now take the spring with that hook on it as well. So the hook part's going to go onto the top of that pivot, and the other end of the spring is going to go on the other end of the lever towards here. Alright, so before we put that plate on, we're going to have a very thin copper washer that goes first, and then there's another washer on top of that. Make sure we do know that spring's not overlapping or going underneath that washer like mine was now. And then we can put now the plate on top. It's quite self-evident where it goes. One folding part. The folding part here is going to go downwards. So the other tip of that return spring that was for the pull is going to need to go towards there. Okay, I managed to get it on. I had to really pull hard though. And so holding all this down is a circlip. So next there's going to be a nylon bushing and another ring that goes into it, and you can pretty much now put this on top. We're going to need to put the last lever on, and we need to put the pull back onto its pivot. So there's a spring that we're going to need to put on first. Pull, and then the circlip that keeps everything in place. So to put this back on, the pull in question needs to fit into that spacing here, and it's eventually going to be pushing that sprocket towards here when you're obviously using it in action. On top of this lever there's going to be a washer that sticks there on top. You then need to put the return spring for the lever, so the tip that's sticking out is going to go right behind here. On top of this you have a ring. Make sure it's staying nice and flat. I'm going to put a bit of Loctite on the nut before we start putting it on. So this will be going anti-clockwise to lock down. I'm not going to do it too tight yet because I need to put that spring back on. So for the spring, the reason I waited to do it until last is just simply because it's really annoying to install without it being held down. So I'm going to keep locking that down. Obviously not too tight, you want it to be kind of right. In fact, you can now test this shifter to see if it's working. Looks like it's good. So we're going to install now the lever back onto the body. So we first take this cylinder shaped ring that goes in between here, and then this is going to go on the top, and it needs to go in between. Once you've done that, you're going to put this type of pivot thing that goes in between all of that at the same time, and on each end of the pivot is those plastic rings. So I'm going to put one there and put that on the other side. Hold that all in place as they fall out, and now they need to kind of slot inside. Okay, I've got it. Pivoting bolt that goes through. So now we're going to put that bolt back in. You put that plastic top cap back through here. Finally, you have the spring, which you clip back on, and you pretty much just push down on it to slide it back into place, and now the lever's good to go. I'm going to put the cap back on underneath on the pod. You forgot to put the barrel adjuster back on. Okay, so it looks like they're shifting really well. I hope this helped you rebuild your M900 shifters. Thank you for listening. I'm going to bed. Peace out.